So the goal of a circular economy is to align and perfect resource efficiency. From the point of the Industrial Revolution forward, we have dominated our natural resources, extracting, processing, dumping toxic waste, mass producing fossil fuel-based materials with one use that degrade only after hundreds of years. Our advancement into the modern age has changed the planet, and we are now experiencing the effects of our poor stewardship. We will continue to experience these apocalyptic scenes if we don't fundamentally shift from extractive business as usual to a sustainable, equitable, and regenerative economy. Business as usual is our Godzilla. Reuse, renewables, recharge, and regeneration. These are all critical to get right for the planet's finite resources and the future of our species. So how do we get there from here? The author Sukant Ratnakar said, "Our future success is directly proportional to our ability to understand, adopt, and integrate new technology into our work." I take this not just as new technology, but revised sustainable manufacturing processes, revisiting ancient and indigenous land management practices, studying nature's cycles, our rhythms, and biology for insights into designing healthier and more resilient systems, ultimately improving upon the way we design, the way we construct, operate, and live in our buildings. Future success is directly proportional to our ability to understand. So empowering and accelerating the AEC industry with education and tools for transformational change is a primary lever in the mission of the William J. Worthen Foundation. Through the generous funding of our sponsors, we offer our guides for free. In 2018, we published the award-winning Water Reuse Practice Guide with over 5,000 downloads globally and was added to the UN Global Compact Library of Resources under the CEO Water Mandate. We also partner with organizations to deploy these meaningful educational components through summits and other educational opportunities. So really the whole goal is demystifying highly technical content into digestible chunks of text and infographics so that anyone, whether you are a student, an architect, a policymaker, anyone could pick up this guide and become better informed about water reuse. 2 weeks ago, we released the first 2 volumes of our Building Decarbonization Practice Guide, a zero carbon future for the built environment. So these first 2 volumes that we released are really about the introduction and context. Why are we here? Why are we doing this? Why is it important? Why now? Volume 2 is Universal Design, Construction, and Operations Considerations. You can download these first 2 volumes now at collaborativedesign.org. We have 5 more volumes coming out over the next several months: multifamily residential, commercial, all electric kitchens, both residential and commercial, the embodied carbon conversation, and then finally codes and policy context. We see the full electrification of our infrastructure, buildings, and appliances as a first incremental step towards energy self-sufficiency using renewables entirely and phasing out fossil fuels. Our future success is directly proportional to our ability to understand, adopt, and integrate. Adoption of strategies that build value beyond the material value of the building itself can only come with understanding of how these other things work. Understanding water reuse, carbon sequestration, renewable energy, and how all of those things can add value for the building owner and its occupants. Evidence of long-term financial benefit for building highly sustainable living buildings connected to their communities continue to mount. Disseminating and making accessible this information will help move the needle. Building code process must also evolve and adapt to allow for methodologies that don't fit within its current parameters. Colin, who is also on this panel, was spot on in his April 2020 article about regenerative design is meant to continually evolve and renew. There's flexibility across project types and sizes, and community engagement is critical to project success. So I see adoption as the big tent. We're all in this together as we gain understanding and move forward with integration. Our future success is directly proportional to our ability to understand, adopt, and integrate. And I see integration as the operationalized thread that binds these regenerative design principles into our new normal. Communities that are connected yet self-sufficient, and a place where resource stewardship is integral to community resilience. It's been said that waste is a design flaw. And there are companies like Epic Cleantech that are not only innovating technology and systems that reclaim wastewater, but they're also capturing and converting the nutrient-rich effluent into high-value compost. Thermal recovery is also another opportunity from that waste stream. So water, energy, carbon, all from our wastewater. And that's just our wastewater. We can do better. And there are companies and organizations like those on this panel that are working to advance these initiatives. The Carbon Leadership Forum is also cranking out some amazing resources for addressing carbon impacts at scale. And frankly, I believe we're on the cusp of a transformational shift, and it's really exciting to think about. So I see a future design that's based on biomimicry, inspiration from a termite mound's passive cooling to reduce HVAC energy load needs, or structural inspiration from the framework of a butterfly wing. Nature has perfected it. All we have to do is pay attention. COVID and last year's social tensions has created an opportunity to meaningfully have conversations about social justice. Environmental stewardship is inextricably linked to social justice. And designing a building for the community in which it sits brings us all closer to that resilient community. We see the faces in the places. We need to be better at building trust in our design teams. And we need a financial and insurance system that rewards projects that support long-term resilience. What we're really talking about here is asset protection. And it's baffling to me why so many financial and insurance institutions continue to push back on these really forward-thinking initiatives that really are about asset protection. It's been said that the most dangerous phrase in human language is "we've always done it this way." History has shown that the world is changed by your example, not by your opinion. And there is mounting evidence around case studies all over the United States and more broadly. And to that point, many owners, developers, designers, policymakers, they say no to all electric design or highly sustainable design. So to that end, there is a case study collaboration currently in the works between the William J. Worthen Foundation, AIA California, New Buildings Institute, with support from HPS and E6 Development. This new site is being created and will include AIA awards, a broader building certifications, expanded project team information, just to name a few. It will also have a refined and glossy cut sheet style output for you to share, to put in front of the owner, to put in front of your client, to put in front of the policymaker. So this call for case studies are coming soon. And we are also looking for fiscal sponsors to support the full development and ongoing usability and management of this database. Competition continues to heat up globally, and we can't afford to be complacent. We need to innovate and iterate upon our systems and processes to compete in the global market. Thomas Edison said, continued innovation is the best way to beat the competition. And while daunting, It's really, really an exciting time to collaborate and make a difference, not only for our planet, for our future generations. And you know what? The time is now.
The vision for IIDA with Design Your World is built around a couple of things. It's built around helping young folks understand what design is and understand that it is a viable career.
I think for kids, so often they're told what to do. They're put in places that they don't have any control over. There's little things in design that I think they can have control over, and I think it's almost an aha moment for kids when they get to understand that they can change the environment that they're in and they can change those spaces.
We want Design Your World to change the lives of every single person that participates in the program. And that's whether you participate as an instructor or whether you participate as a student. That's the most powerful aspect of design. And so a program like Design Your World is not only going to benefit the kids that are participating, it's going to benefit this industry by changing the entire perspective on what we think design is and how design is practiced.
There's so much great stuff in the world of art and design, and there's so many kids that would value it, and there's so many kids that could benefit from it. We just have to do a better job of finding space in our life to share back and give back.
We're here to inspire these kids, and I want to be able to show these kids that there's a path forward and that there's belonging for them in design. To open their eyes up and at minimum, just help to show them that spaces and environments can be changed through their own actions and that they have the power and control over that. But just to be able to show them that they belong and there's space for them, I think that's so important.
This really exposes not only our teens, but their organization to like diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? And so bringing in, a different cohort of teens to explore and to, start thinking about different career paths. And so I think that that's another wonderful thing about After School Matters and how it connects teens and partners together.
The instructors are experts in the field. So IIDA is the perfect partner when they are experts in their field to come and teach our teens and give them those basics of interior design.
My role with Design Your World, I was the very first instructor. So with that came creating a curriculum with my lovely team and being one-on-one with the students. So yeah, that was my role. First, I would ask them what they think the interior design is. They were just like, you pick out colors. Yes, we pick out colors, but there's a little bit more. You think about building codes. You think about the flow of the space. You also think about the experience, the environment, what draws you to it. So we had that kind of conversation. Someone pretty much designed every single thing that you're touching for a reason. Talking about collaboration and networking, even in the first week, I wanted to let them know that we had to just being able to collaborate and communicate your ideas and listen to someone beside you and just kind of like have that kind of back and forth. It was very important. And we also talked about how interior designers collaborate with all different types of fields, so architecture, construction. Like you have to have that kind of collaboration with general contractors, just kind of building that network of people. I did ask them up front what they wanted to learn, so I kind of also based my curriculum around that, even though I had it, but I kind of tweaked it to make sure I touched on the topics they really wanted to focus on. They wanted to know like the history of design, how to start a sketch, like how do you add your own personal style to things, and like the elements of design and like the principles. So we'll talk about space and form and like color and how those things kind of influence you in certain design choices that you make. They wanted to know like career path, like colleges, how to choose a college. So we talked about schools and scholarships. That if you come curious, I want you to leave curious, but I want you to also question the decision that was made. What made them choose this color? Why do I like it? Why do people come here versus going to a place that they can go to? So during the 5th week of the course, we went on an architectural walking tour downtown Chicago. During that tour, we met at the IDA headquarters. We walked downtown. The tour guide gave us like the history of Chicago, which was cool. I learned some things about the Chicago fire that I didn't know. The first skyscraper was here, so the students were asking questions about that. We looked at some of the architecture and we kind of tied it into how architecture influences interior design style. So the students asked about that, which was cool. We would walk around and be in that like 1920s buildings where like really big, the skyscrapers are still here. I would ask the students, what design style is this? And then kind of tie those together and pull like furniture pieces designed during that time period and have them sketch it. And we would talk about that and just have that kind of conversation of how iconic design can really be. So you could come up with something on your own now, and 20, 50 years later, it's still a thing. So just kind of showing them like what successful design could be, what unsuccessful design could be seen as. So I really feel like I probably gave them too much, but you know, why not? They're students, they're high school, they're young, they can remember. So towards the end, I asked each student what they would take away from the course. A lot of students surprised me that they didn't know like the hand lettering that architects used. A lot of them were taking away like the different design styles, the different color schemes, the fact that color schemes are a thing. But I wanted to make sure that they understood you don't necessarily have to go to school for interior design. There are a lot of design fields that you can definitely go under, but I wanted to express like you could do this if you have a keen eye for doing something more techy. Maybe try architecture. More design based, you might like this, but you want to do that, maybe illustration. Just try to show them all these things kind of take a part of the design field. So I really think just kind of exposing them to the arts was also important, but just letting them know there are a lot of different routes you can go with the design background.
So a program like Design Your World is not only going to benefit the kids that are participating, it's going to benefit this industry by changing the entire perspective on what we think design is and how design is practiced. There will be generations of new designers who will bring their very special way of thinking and a perspective that has not always been seen in this profession. They'll be bringing it to the table, and it won't be new anymore. It won't be different. They won't be alone. They won't be solitary, but they'll stand in solidarity with their peers in continuing to advance the profession of design.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to DesignTV. I'm Avi Rajagopal, Editor-in-Chief of Metropolis. And I'm so thrilled to dive a little deeper into the video that you just saw with the Executive Vice President and CEO of IIDA, Cheryl Durst. Cheryl, such a pleasure to have you on with me today.
Hi, Avi. Great to see you again. And I'm really grateful for this opportunity to talk about what is absolutely one of my favorite topics.
Cheryl, let's dig in. Give us a little bit of backstory here. How did this program even come about? How did you decide to create Design Your World?
So it has a bit of longitudinal history, Avi. This started, it's the result of a conversation that was had 10 years ago by IIDA. We convened a roundtable of leaders, both volunteers and manufacturers in our community, to talk about issues in our profession. And equity and diversity and representation kept coming up. Now, mind you, this was 10 years ago, right? We've all identified these issues, these challenges in the past. And in the course of the conversation, we started talking about how it was imperative that this industry and IIDA as an organization start talking to high school students and even younger than high school students, middle school students, about the viability and vitality of design as a career. And then it led us to talking about those who were underrepresented in our profession. And the idea came about that we needed to craft a program as a touchstone for students. This was 10 years ago. And so time and effort and capacity and a bit of patience, and you know how it goes with organizations, some other priorities occurred. And it took us about 7 years, because we started working on this 3 years ago. You need to work with a school board, a school district, to really launch an effective pipeline program, a pathways program. So there are layers of bureaucracy. And we were very fortunate that the city of Chicago, through the wife of the former mayor, Maggie Daley, started this program called After School Matters. And it was an introduction to trades, professions, careers, but design had not yet been represented. And so we had a bit of a perfect storm where the city was looking for a way to introduce design into curriculum. We were obviously looking for a conduit for design education, and through a lot of conversations, a lot of effort, and maybe a little bit of prayer, this program came to pass. On our end, we created Design Your World, and so this 6-week program really was an effort, a decades-long effort on behalf of IIDA.
Of course, there's so much to love about the program in terms of how it brings these students and these really bright young minds into contact with the design professions. But I will say one detail that I really loved in the video that we all just saw is that you have such an expansive view of the interior design professions. There's a little bit there about how you can be interested in coding and be in the design professions. You can be interested in so many things, like in the arts or in management or in business, and still the interior design pathway is a pathway that might be open to you. Can you talk a little bit about how the students who took part in the program responded to it? What were some of your favorite stories? Were there moments that you were surprised by?
Well, sure, Avi. There was this really enthusiastic embrace of design, right? Who doesn't love design, right? We've seen that throughout our careers, but it turns out these students were looking for ways to amplify things that they already love. There were students in there who loved sales. There were students who were really interested in brand and marketing. There were students who were vastly interested in how they could help and support their own communities. And we were able to take that message that design can connect all of those dots. So whether STEM was your love, whether the arts were your love, whether storytelling was what you love, that design is that silver thread that runs through everything that these kids were interested in. And so what was so amazing and gratifying, it was to see these light bulbs go off when all of a sudden these students realized, oh, design can be the answer to solving, right? And just that solving. So these kids are thinking on a daily basis about what is going on in their communities. And for them to have the realization that design could be a problem solver and that they could be kind of agents of design. That one young lady said in the course of the class, she said, "I am powerful because of design." And that touched my heart. It touched my soul, because that was the message that we wanted to send, was that within design, there's such agency and such wherewithal. And very often, Avi, we see students, and not all of the students in this course came from compromised circumstances, but we often see students, young people, feeling utterly powerless. And for us to be able to give them access to this wonderful tool called design, and they saw that as a tool of power and a tool of wherewithal, was incredible. And so we heard story after story as the students were crafting and creating and talking about their experiences. Our instructor, Sierra C. Payton, was phenomenal, and she opened so many doors for these students. And so there was gratitude, and there was astonishment, and there were these amazing learning moments where the students could see that the power for change was literally at their fingertips.
The other thing that I really loved in what we saw was the students get a real sort of intimate face-to-face with the business of design, you know, talking to the manufacturers in our industry, walking through the mart, you know, just really almost being at the heart of where design business happens. What were their reactions to that, Cheryl?
So we took them, there were 2 field trips. And so the first field trip was to the merchandise mart. We introduced them to the manufacturers that were our partners. So OFS and Mannington and 3Form and Configura. And we visited the showrooms in the mart. But of course, Avi, you know that the merchandise mart itself is awe-inspiring, right? It's this 4 million square foot building behemoth in Chicago. And so many of these students had not been to the building. They had not, when they walked in, they weren't sure how they would be received or welcomed. That building can be intimidating on a good day, right? For any of us. And so imagine being, you know, 14 years old and walking into that building. And there was a bit of trepidation. It was interesting to observe. There was a bit of trepidation amongst some of the students. And because so many of them had not been accustomed to feeling welcomed, in a lot of places. Walking into some place like the merchandise mart, the first reaction was, I don't belong here. And we wanted to smash that myth. We wanted to dispel that feeling of not belonging, right? We're introducing them to an entire profession, and that building often is the embodiment of design. And so we wanted to exhibit this warmth, this welcome, this message that you have a place here. And so in every product manufacturer showroom that we visited, the teams, the staff there exhibited this incredibly warm welcome. And so quite honestly, Avi, as wonderful as the product is that exists in the mart, it was the people that demonstrated to these students that you belong here, you have a place here, and that, you know, very overtly and also unconsciously sent a message to those students about the profession of design. And so one student said, the one student said, wow, everybody here is so warm and wonderful, and I feel like I can be safe here. And that was a critical message as well, because that feeling of safety and security and comfort is key to all of us, right? It's central to who we are as human beings. And so I give credit so much to all of those manufacturers for not just sending this incredible intellectual message about design, but they sent an emotional message about design as well. And that matters.
Absolutely. I don't think, you know, this profession, the interior design profession from the outside, you know, can seem a little intimidating, right? I mean, interior designers work with great organizations around the world. They're often creating really high-end, beautiful spaces, whether those are homes or offices or hotels or hospitals. It can seem intimidating, and yet, you know, when you step into the profession, I think you realize that this is really, I mean, we're in a warm and welcoming profession, and precisely because those are the kind of spaces we want to create in the world. And so it's just wonderful here you talk about, you know, that really coming through to the students, because that's really important, is to drop that facade and step in.
Well, and I think it was just a good reminder for all of us who are professionals to be mindful that beauty can be intimidating. And there are those that don't feel that they have access to that beauty. It feels just out of reach somewhere sometimes. And also that design has a language, it has a vocabulary, it has a lexicon. And if you don't feel as if you're a part of that vocabulary, or you're missing some steps in that vocabulary, again, that's one more thing that sits you outside of that. And so again, through Design Your World, we were teaching students the vocabulary of design. So they had command of a new language. And again, that's about access.
Yeah. Cheryl, tell us about why Design Your World is an important program for IIDA. I mean, as you said, you incubated it for quite a while. It has taken a lot of effort and a lot of time to get it off the ground. And now you have, you know, this group of students who've had this incredible interface with the world of interior design. What has that meant to IIDA as an organization?
I think for IIDA, Design Your World has meant one more avenue for us to introduce a new audience for design. I mean, personally, as an organization, it was incredibly gratifying and satisfying, and this feeling that yes, we can do something this monumental. But also as a profession, it's introducing this new audience, this new cohort. In that group of students, there could be not only a future designer, but there could be a future CEO or COO, you know, someone who will be leveraging design for their organization. There undoubtedly is a future community activist in that organization who now has one more tool in their arsenal to implement change in their community. And so I think we felt that our ability to arm a new cohort, new champions, new evangelists for design is just one more step forward for our profession in terms of access and exposure and equity, and then also introducing for a community that within design not only exists warmth and comfort and hospitality, but also dignity. These students were so encouraged by the program. It brought not only competence to them, but confidence that maybe they hadn't seen in other areas. And so the ability to say design can do that is huge, not only for IIDA, but for our profession.
Cheryl, right at the end of the video, you spoke really beautifully about why this represents a wave of change for the profession, and the profession, you know, that really needs it. You know, often when we think about equity or diversity in the design professions, you know, we're thinking about representations in our own representation in our own ranks, right? How many designers, what backgrounds do they come from? What, you know, economic or social kind of perspectives do they bring? But what you just said, you know, just to reiterate, you know, this idea of not just creating a pipeline for future designers, but creating a pipeline for future design collaborators, really spreading that message of the power of design, but also giving people the confidence to demand good design, to expect good design as their experience in the world. I think that's so powerful. Do you want to quickly just reiterate for us how you would like Design Your World to influence the profession at large?
Absolutely, Avi. I think programs like Design Your World, and by no means are we the only one. You know, on my bucket list, there are 1,000 programs like this. we should all be invested in crafting a similar experience for students out there. I think we all know, whether we're Black or brown or female, or right, and this isn't just about race, gender, or ethnicity. You know, we all know what it's like to be first or only or different. And for IIDA as an interior design organization, I certainly over the years have listened to my members talk about being the only interior designer in the room, or listening to them talk about design not having a seat at the table, or design being considered last. And I'm able to compare and contrast that to my experience as a Black woman. I have felt all of those things, feeling last, feeling as if I didn't have a seat at the table, feeling unseen, feeling unheard. We've all been there. And I think the goal is to reduce the number of us, whether it's interior designers or women or Black and brown folks, to reduce the numbers of people who feel so alone. Reduce the numbers, but increase the power and wherewithal to have that voice, as you say, to speak up and say, I will be heard as a woman. I will be heard as an interior designer. I will be heard as an HR manager, right? Whatever it is that needs to be heard, design has that ability, that unique ability, I believe, beyond so many other professions, to intently listen. That was one of the things that we talked about with the students, is that as important as it is to use your voice, it is just as important to listen, and design is a profession that excels at listening. And so I think the more that we as a profession can incorporate, involve, widen our perspective to listen broadly. I think in so many ways as a profession, we've listened narrowly through perhaps a very Eurocentric view that extends all the way from curriculum to practice. And so broadening our perspective of what we're not only seeing, but hearing, then that extends to what we're doing as a practice or as practitioners.
That's incredible. You know, we all need that broadening of our horizons. And, you know, unless we take that broad and inclusive view, we can't really have the impact in the world that we set out to do. So thank you so much for that, Cheryl. That was truly inspirational. Thank you to all the folks at IIDA, as well as all your partners, for your leadership on this and for bringing together this really beautiful program. Design Your World is absolutely fantastic, and it's been incredible for us to get a small taste of it through this video and through this conversation. Thank you so much for your work, and thank you for taking the time.
Thank you, Avi, and thank you to Metropolis, and thank you to the entire SANDOW family for all of your support of IIDA and Design Your World.
Of course. Thank you so much, Cheryl. And thank you all for joining us today and for watching this conversation with Cheryl Durst, the Executive Vice President and CEO of IIDA. If you want to find out more about Design Your World or all the amazing other resources that IIDA provides, head on over to iida.org. It's been great having you on, Cheryl, and thanks to everyone for joining us. Have a great day.